皆さん、こんにちは。ジョーです。今日はですね、なんとあまりなかなかない機会なんですけれども、世界的にも有名な、皆さんがおそらく持っているイメージはミームのイメージだと思うんですけれども、ボンクのチームの方にですね、来ていただきました。で、今日はボンクがどんなことをしているか、どんな背景持っているかとか、どんなビジョンを持っているか、そういったところをお伺いしていけたらなと思っています。Okay, thank you so much, Nam, for your time. I'm really happy to and honored to have you here and ask a lot of questions. And I hope many of my audience get to know more about Bonk. So we're gonna kickstart as your introduction and how you got into crypto. Is that okay?
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you a ton for having me, and I'm very excited to be talking about Bonk. So for myself, I first got into crypto through a couple of different gaming and ecosystem areas. I was heavily involved in secondary market trading on a few different games. So actually, a lot of my exposure came through Second Life and Litecoin and Linden dollars in that exchange for any of those who are familiar. My development time really came about in early 2017 while I was working through my degrees in computer science. So essentially, I was working as an EVM developer as well as on a variety of different masternode coins, and working through essentially like cutting my teeth on understanding what blockchain infrastructure actually was going to be and what was necessary there. I pivoted over to Solana based on a friend's recommendation. I'd taken some Rust in university and started to get involved in early 2021. But a lot of my work actually turned into organizational and planning. So my primary work on Solana before Bonk was being involved in the governance and organization of MonkeyDAO, as well as in a few other projects, primarily focused in DAO governance, the ways that people are utilizing the technology in order to make effective decisions. I have a background in human computer interaction and process automation, so it was just a pretty natural fit to roll into there. But obviously once we got into the end of 2022, went through the downtrend or the end of kind of the downswing of the bear market, as well as in a post FTX situation. Myself and a few other individuals came up with a lot of the ideas that turned into Bonk. We decided to essentially run that. And since then, it's been 18 months of essentially being a core contributor to Bonk, working on the regulatory and institutional side of a lot of the different opportunities that we're building out here.
Thank you. I think people have a different perspective for the bonk, but from your perspective, what's bonk? What do you guys do?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's pretty broad. So Bonk started out as an ecosystem stimulus project. When you saw the aftermath of the 2023 kind of crashes, obviously you had seen everything from Celsius and Luna, BlockFi, then going into FTX as well. The issue was that there were still a significant amount of developers and teams that were building. There were artists who were creating. There were people who were still trading tokens and NFTs, but institutional capital had really left the ecosystem. Solana was especially hard hit with this. And there was a significant number of users who were still on the chain, but there was not necessarily the available liquidity or interest for new developers to continue to build out products, and for people to be able to use them. You were running into significant issues around simple things like borrow lend liquidity, having enough stable coins in order to be able to effectively transact. So we created Bonk as essentially something where in a low marketing competition environment, right? End of the year, most trading desks have already, um, you know, filled up or stopped working for the end of the year. There's not a bunch of different product releases. We found Bonk as a way to essentially be a Christmas gift where we knew that people were going to be looking for something to rally around. We knew that they were going to be interested in figuring out what they wanted to be involved with, and wanted to try new things. And ideally, we could do this in a token that essentially had zero cost for any of these people who we had viewed as being good actors, whether they were developers, traders, collectors, or artists. And we want to just reward them and push them towards trying out other things that were going on in the chain. If you had held Solana, up and down through the entirety of the market, and you were still holding it, you were clutching that very tightly. And Sol is primarily used as a utility and governance token on the chain. So if you have a utility token that nobody wants to spend, it's very hard to come up with anything that people are interested in, which is why giving people millions or billions of Bonk tokens and saying, here's all the things that you can do with it, created a very attractive thing for people to rally around. And you saw that in not only the social movement of Bonk, but also in just the number of integrations that it's grown to. We started with 30 in December of 2022. It's now grown to over 300. Even something like the Bonkathon that was recently completed with the Align protocol and the folks over at Phase Labs behind that, you had 672 submissions into the Bonkathon for Bonk-related utilities and products. It's the second largest hackathon that's happened on Solana. In that middle period, right between where we are now and where we started, the question always becomes what happens after an airdrop? What does this token actually do? What do people get involved with, and what are they actually interested in being a part of? And for this reason, we really leaned heavily into the utility and community narratives because we wanted to get people as involved as possible with continually supporting teams and continuing to try things out. There are trillions of Bonk out there in the ecosystem. It's very easy for teams that are pre-token generation event or even token mechanisms to utilize Bonk in such a way where it's not going to be dilutive to their brand. It's not going to be dilutive to their overall capital raise or the functions of the protocol. It's really useful as a token that you can experiment and try new things. And Bonk, as not only a meme coin, but as a utility token, as a governance token, what it's essentially been built out to into what we call an ecosystem coin. It's something where it's now representing culture. It's trying new things. It's picking up things from new artists. It's going out and looking at sports that you might not have worked or looked at before. It's going to IRL events. It's checking out different ecosystems now with partnerships like what we're doing with the folks over at Manta. It's designed to be, a helpful dog coin that is replicating something that we've seen before in the ways that people are able to utilize tokens in this way, but also add a lot more of like very heavy ecosystem utilization and to get people to do more things on Solana. We build a lot of apps and we build a lot of infrastructure, but we don't do a really good job right now in crypto as a whole of getting people to utilize apps consistently as a part of their daily basis. You might use DeFi protocols when you get money or when you have the opportunity to try them out or you want to farm something. You might buy art if you see an artist that you like, and you might try out a game if your friend recommends it to you. But it's not something where you're spending an hour of your life probably actually interacting with the chain. You're probably on a social layer like Twitter or Telegram or WeChat talking about it, but you're not necessarily using it on a day-to-day basis. And that's really the problem that we want to solve as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Before going to the product of the Bonk, I want to one more time ask you, because you just touched up on it, the culture of the Bonk, mission, what are they?
Yeah, this is something that's definitely evolved over time, especially as we continue to build Bonk out. So it started again as something where we wanted to be, the helpful dog that's leading you across places in Solana. It's leading you to new opportunities. It's something that you want to try out. And this has now shifted into essentially looking at a model like what Consensus was able to do for Ethereum. It's a decentralized foundation that's able to represent the interests of the ecosystem. It's able to fund infrastructure or things that need to be built via token grants. Bonk's able to highlight or promote various different teams or individuals that might have a good product, but not necessarily a good go-to-market strategy or a good way to distribute what they're doing towards users. And Bonk is also able to essentially work on making this as fun as possible. There are a lot of key interesting products that need to be built for crypto that are not necessarily going to be as interesting or exciting as people would like. You don't necessarily need to know all the things that go on in your credit card or your banking app in order to make purchases or transact. You don't need to understand how your phone is connecting to cell towers in order to make a call or to send a text. But if you can find teams that are solving those problems, whether they're deep in products like what the teams at Helium are doing, or a lot of what the on and off ramping teams like Sphere are doing really, really well, and you can make them a little bit more fun, you can make them a little bit more engaging, that's where we really want Bonk to step in and support the areas where we know it's key infra, we know that it's key things that need to get built out, and we want to be able to be, an application layer on top of as many of those as possible to drive volume, to drive traffic, and to drive attention towards the people that are building the products that need to be created.
Thank you. But within the ecosystem, Bonk's presence is like, I think, huge. You guys play a quite important role. For example, when I talk to startup in Solana, I think a lot of time Bonk is one of the few bridges that they interact with the community through Bonk. So then they have a smooth entry, smooth collaboration opportunities, and so on. This could be one of the examples, but what are the role of Bonk within the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think the way that one of my fellow contributors, Cadence, has described it is it's a reverse mullet, if you've ever seen one. So it's designed to be party in the front and business in the back. What we really target is there are teams that are spending all of their time trying to fundraise. There are teams that are spending all their time trying to get users. There are teams that are trying to figure out how to get more users onto their product. And it's very difficult for founders or 1, 2, 3, 5 person teams to succeed there. And even then, if you look at startup success rates, if you look at small business success rates, they're very, very low because there's a lot of risk that goes on in there. What we really want Bonk to do is to be at least that friendly, approachable social layer and take some of the headache off of people's plates by interacting with Bonk. We don't expect, every product to interact with Bonk and to always be focused on prioritizing Bonk. We expect people to work on their products and to focus there, but they can take advantage of the network that we've built. They can take advantage of the fact that we're coming up on, 1 million users on Solana right now. They can, get the advantage of working directly with Bonk to solve a lot of those cold start problems, to solve a lot of the issues around distribution so that they can focus on the thing that matters, which is get their product to the best state possible, figure out how they can raise funds for that product if it's needed so that they can help scale it out, and then work on making it, ideally applicable to non-crypto users as much as possible. We really want to just solve the issue of these founders have to figure out how do they get something that a crypto audience is interested and excited about. And we do a really good job through campaigns like Bonkmas, or now what we're doing with the Bonk Dragon, for user delivery. And that's something where, we benefit the more people use Bonk. We benefit the more that people talk about Bonk. In something where, there's this continued attention or economy, like there's always going to be new memes, there's always going to be new things that people are trading or excited about or talking about on social platforms. Like, we just want to be something that people use daily. That's the way that we win. So working with teams that need our help is really the benefit that we need, or the thing that we're looking to check out. Like, we just want people to use Bonk as much as possible in their daily life. That's our win condition.
Thank you. And then now we gear towards what you've been building. Can you give us some example of products, list of the products that you guys spend a lot of time?
Yeah, so the important thing to focus on is that what we're trying to do is essentially set up independent companies that are able to survive on their own. They're able to be a part of this Bonk umbrella or family, but they can run and manage for themselves. I'm only one guy. I'm only going to be able to help out so many things from the DAO perspective. So I want to make sure that founders and teams that are building a product that's related around Bonk, have the autonomy and have the ability to build themselves out. If you've traded on Solana, you're probably familiar with BonkBot. It's developed by a couple of good friends who are, and now actually quite a large team behind them, who have been working on this bot for the last year. So BonkBot is the fastest trading bot that exists on Solana. It also has the highest amount of daily active users, the highest amount of fees in turn, or sorry, not only fees, but also volume in terms of volume traded over a set period of time of bots on any blockchain. So they've been number one for quite a while there, and they're continuing to update and expand. You might have also used DEX platform Bonk Swap, or potentially some utility-based applications like what we call Pooper Scooper, which is designed to take all of the tiny token balances and rent accounts inside of your wallet, clean those up, and give you back either Sol or Bonk, depending on what the things are cleaning up there. You've probably also checked out things like our Bonk Art Masters program with Exchange Art, which is designed to be something that not only allows people to sell art in Bonk, but also is a grants and recognition program for these artists as a way to get them in front of as many eyes as possible. But you've also probably seen things like what we did previously for either the Bonk boxing events or with our IRL partners around Crypto Fight Night or Karate Combat, where we're also looking at the ideas of what is the gaming or wagering side of people looking at either live sporting events or our partner kind of activations. So we really are looking into, whether it's DeFi, whether it's, supporting artists and collectors. Even you can see a bunch of different NFT collections that have been built up around Bonk. So there's the Bonky DAO. There are the guys over at Bonks, which are really focused on ways to help and support pets and the narratives there. And like there's hundreds of these integrations. There's as many of these teams as possible. And the ideal point is that if anybody wants to build something around Bonk, they can.
Thank you. And then one thing notable recently is that Bonk LSD. Do you know there's a reason behind why that's released?
Sure. So Bonk started a validator early 2023 with the help of the folks over at Jito. One of the things that we saw was that with the decline, obviously, in Sol's price, that also declines the ability for profitability in validators. So we actually saw a significant number of those going offline on the network. For Bonk, we wanted to obviously display support for the network. So we started what was essentially like the first community token validator that got set up there. And numerous teams have now also followed suit and are running their own. But once you have a validator online, the question always becomes like, how are you competing for stake with other areas, which is usually based around either fee generation or now things like SWQS. Or now competing on MEV if you're running the Jito client as well. So we actually worked directly with the Sanctum team to launch Bonk Sol, which was designed to build out essentially an LST that rewards you with Bonk, not only in your staking yield, but also as a part of the validator's fees. So every epoch, some part of the validator fees, I believe it's about 40% right now, gets transitioned directly into Bonk and then distributed to the holders of Bonk Sol. So it's a way for you to not only get your hands on more Bonk, but also as a place for you to put your Sol to work, securing the network and benefiting in that way. There's a bunch of different LSTs that have been pushed out by Sanctum. We're very happy to be obviously one of the first ones that have been developed there. And we're happy to continue to support the network for the foreseeable future. If Sol doesn't work, we don't have Bonk, so we need to make sure that the network stays live and that we're continuing to support it in as many ways as possible.
That's good. Thank you. And now people, of course, trade, hold Bonk. What are the utilities or benefits or something coming ahead, if there's anything? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all those who are holding or trading Bonk, we look into it in a couple of different ways of what can teams do that are benefiting the token and what else is necessary in order to continue to get people interested and excited around Bonk. So obviously things around the social presence for Bonk and getting more and more users interested and excited around it. So you'll see various different learn and earn campaigns right now for getting more attention and interest inside of Bonk. That's been working with the folks over at Revolut. And there's also one that's going to be going live with the teams over at Robinhood Europe. We're also lucky to work with teams like Binance and Bybit and OKX to develop campaigns that are essentially not only working to increase the amount of people who have awareness of Bonk, but also just like overall the interest in having it as a currency. We actually try to do a lot of things to educate people around what Bonk is and what it does. Longer term, if you're somebody who's holding on to Bonk, we actually started working with a team over at Armada for a platform called Bonk Rewards. And what Bonk Rewards is designed to do is not only is there hundreds of protocols that are generating fees, some portion of those fees are actually getting directed back towards holders of Bonk. So if you lock your Bonk in the Bonk Rewards platform for a set period of time, you actually get the right to a portion of the fees from hundreds of different teams that are developing on the network. And if those teams continue to choose to direct fees to the Bonk Rewards platform, you get a portion of that based on the amount that you've put into the area. There's not a set burn, or so there's not a set like burn that goes on in Bonk. There's not a inflation rate. Bonk is a fixed supply token. It's deflationary only if people choose to burn the token for whatever reason. So there's not necessarily a value accrual or capture mechanism for Bonk outside of what these teams are continuously trying to do. So,
And now I feel like you guys spend more time towards on Asia, if that's right. Is there any particular reason that I think Solana also trying to spend more time on Asia because now the breakpoint is going to be in Singapore and so on. Is there any particular reason to spend more time on Asia market?
our goal for Bonk is for it to be global, and that starts with actually going to the communities and doing the work. So we think that we did a pretty good job in terms of North America and in terms of Europe so far. Asia needs a lot more work and a lot more attention. We're excited with how 2024 has been going, but there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of places to be as involved in as possible. And in the same vein, we're actually also looking into Latin America. We're looking in Africa. We want to see how we can also approach those communities. So a lot more attention is going to be pushed into Asia, but we really want to not only have on the ground presence, but also social presence and long term community engagement with these groups because we want to have an understanding of what needs to be built or what do people want to use.
I see. What have you done for those regions as a project development perspective?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that you're going to see has been the difference in regulation, the different ways that tokens and teams are really being approached, and the ways that you're going to be able to offer it. So Bonk's always had a pretty heavy focus on regulated activities. We want to make sure that if there's a right side and a wrong side, we're on the right side as much as possible. You'll see a lot more focus in Asia in terms of like mobile gaming communities, which Bonk doesn't really have right now, right? We've been focused on a lot of different integrations. We haven't really been focused on anything inside of gaming. We've worked on it with a variety of different partners so far, but we haven't really made a Bonk game, right? For lack of a better word. So something like that has been a big focus of the most recent Bonkathon, and it's also been something that we're looking for in terms of what local teams are doing, just ways that we can, make it interesting and make it a little bit more activated there. We also didn't have as much of a buy-in into the art scene until we started doing a few gallery pieces directly with teams in Korea and with local artists inside of Korea. So we want to see, what's the difference in activating there versus things like what we would want to do with an art basel inside of Miami, right? What does it mean in terms of making, animation or cartoons that appeal to a Western audience versus something like an Eastern audience? And how can we make it so that ideally it's something that can be globally recognized or appreciated in a lot of the media that we're doing? Ideally, our goal is that we would be able to create one thing that's recognized all over the world and that we don't have to worry about differences in those communities.
Thank you. And I think time is running up, but before we go, is there anything you want to highlight, mention?
Yeah. So Bonk is going to be all over the place for Breakpoint, for Korea Blockchain Week. We're also looking at things for DAO Tokyo, for the Super Team Japan events that are going to be going forward, as well as I believe for Blocktober in Hong Kong and a variety of other areas. If there are events or venues that you think Bonk should have a presence at, we'd love to hear about it. If there's local initiatives or anything going on where you need support, we're building out a directed grants program right now at the Bonk DAO so that we can directly support as many of these smaller initiatives as possible. And if there's something that you want to see or a product that you're building that needs funding or marketing or support, please reach out. The website is www.bonkcoindao.com. That's basically just what we're doing for processing a variety of different partnership or requests for marketing and initiatives via the Bonk DAO entity, and continuing to support there. Other than that, I'm just very thankful, obviously, for your time and for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. Hopefully, I can see you soon in, I think, Japan, Korea, or Breakpoint. Thank you for your time.
Awesome.
Nam.
Thank you so much, Joe.